Sarah had always been the kind of person who was content with her steady life. In her late 20s, she had a good job at a marketing agency, a cozy apartment in the city, and a circle of close friends who felt more like family. But there was something that made her feel complete: Jake. They had been together for almost 3 years, and in the beginning, everything felt like a fairy tale. They met at a mutual friends party one summer, and their connection was instant. He was charming, funny, and made her laugh in ways no one else could. They spent weekends exploring the city, going on spontaneous trips, and just enjoying each other's company. Their relationship was the kind everyone admired: two people in sync, sharing the same dreams, the same passions. The first couple of years felt effortless. Jake was always thoughtful, bringing her favorite flowers after a tough week at work, surprising her with handwritten notes tucked into her purse. They had their usual spots: the cozy cafe where they had their first date, the quiet park bench they would visit on weekends to talk about everything and nothing. Sarah thought to herself, this is it. This is what love should feel like. She felt safe, cherished, and incredibly lucky to have found someone who truly understood her. For a long time, life was exactly as she imagined it would be. Perfect. But over the last few months, things started to shift. At first, it was so subtle, so small, that Sarah didn't even question it. Jake seemed a little more distracted than usual, his gaze lingering on his phone during their dinners together, his responses shorter than before. Late-night work calls that lasted longer than they ever had before, even on weekends when they would usually spend time together. He would come home late, often too tired to talk, and spend more time with his friends than with her. He'd reassure her it was just stress from work or an important project that required his attention. She wanted to believe him, and so she did. After all, work was demanding, and everyone had their busy spells, right? So she kept brushing it off, convincing herself that it was nothing more than a phase. But despite her best efforts to ignore the nagging feeling deep inside her, she couldn't shake the unease that started creeping into her mind. It was a feeling she couldn't quite explain, but it was there. It wasn't just his behavior, it was the way he'd become distant, almost unreachable at times. She couldn't pinpoint when it started, but somewhere along the way, it felt like he had become a stranger in his own home. Sarah wasn't the type to overthink, but the more she tried to push these thoughts away, the more they lingered, refusing to be ignored. She wondered if she was just imagining things. She wanted to confront him, ask if something had changed, but the words never seemed to come. What if she was wrong? What if she was just being paranoid? What if she ruined everything by questioning him? So she stayed quiet, watching him drift further away, unsure whether to trust her own instincts or to give him the benefit of the doubt. It was an ordinary Wednesday afternoon when Sarah decided to come home early from work. The meeting she'd been sitting through had been long, and she just wanted to relax, maybe surprise Jake with a homemade dinner. She was excited to get back to their apartment, as it had been a while since they'd had a quiet evening together. The door creaked open, and she slipped inside, carrying a couple of grocery bags. But as soon as she stepped into their shared space, something felt off. Jake's bag, usually placed neatly by the door when he came in, was left open on the table. It was unlike him to leave things out like this. Jake was the kind of person who prided himself on being organized. The bag seemed hastily unpacked, its contents spilling over: clothes, a notebook, some receipts scattered across the tabletop. It caught Sarah's attention, but she didn't think too much of it. Maybe he had just rushed out this morning, but as she moved past the table, something else drew her in. A small piece of paper stuck out from under a pile of paperwork on the counter, half hidden, almost deliberately so. Curiosity gnawed at her. She put down the groceries and moved closer, lifting the paper. It was a letter, sealed, elegant, and looking important. Her stomach churned, but she couldn't stop herself. It was addressed to Jake, with his full name written on the front in neat handwriting. Something about it seemed wrong. Why would a letter be sitting out like this, especially one that was sealed and unopened? Without thinking too much, she carefully peeled back the envelope, her fingers trembling slightly, and pulled out the letter inside. The moment she began reading, Sarah's heart dropped. The handwriting wasn't Jake's, it was the neat, flowing script of someone else, a woman's. The letter began with a simple greeting: "Jake, my love," and continued with intimate, almost unbearable details. Sarah's eyes widened as she read the words on the page, the ink becoming blurry as her vision clouded. The woman, Emily, as she introduced herself at the end of the letter, spoke of their ongoing affair in the present tense. She apologized for not being able to meet more often, expressing longing for their next secret rendezvous. There were mentions of stolen moments, passionate weekends away, and plans to make up for lost time. Sarah felt as though the ground beneath her feet was giving way. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think clearly. Her hands were shaking as she gripped the letter tighter, unable to tear her gaze away. Each sentence felt like a punch to her gut. "I can't wait to be with you this weekend. Just the two of us. No interruptions," Emily had written. The words felt like a taunt, like a cruel joke. Was this real? Was she reading this correctly? Her mind raced, but there was no denying the undeniable truth written on the page. She felt like she was suffocating. A heavy weight settled in her chest as anger and disbelief collided with the sharp sting of betrayal. She thought back to all the moments she had dismissed her doubts. Those late-night calls, the unexplained absences, his growing distance. She had defended him when her friends raised concerns, brushed off her own intuition as nothing more than paranoia. Now, all of those moments felt like lies. She had trusted him, believed in their future together, and now it was all crashing down in a single letter. Her body felt numb as she reread the letter, each word burning through her like acid. She couldn't understand how this had happened, how Jake, her Jake, had been capable of such deceit. He'd made promises, whispered sweet nothings in her ear, and told her he loved her. How could he do this to her? How could he lie so convincingly? It was as if the world she had carefully built around herself had shattered, leaving her standing in the ruins, unable to find a way out. The letter felt like a punch, each word a cruel reminder of how completely she had been blindsided. Sarah couldn't bring herself to confront Jake just yet. She needed more, needed the truth laid out before her, so she could face him with undeniable evidence. Her hands still trembling, she carefully folded the letter and tucked it back under the stack of paperwork on the counter, hoping he wouldn't notice it missing. But there was a fire burning inside her now, a need to understand, to connect the dots. She wasn't sure how far she was willing to go, but the temptation to uncover the truth was too strong to resist. She started with his jacket, the one he had left hanging on the back of the chair when he left that morning. Her breath hitched as she slipped her hand into the pocket. Inside, she found his phone. Her heart raced as she glanced around the apartment. No one was home, just her and the silent, accusing device. She knew she shouldn't, but her fingers hovered over the screen, unlocking it with the familiarity of someone who had done it countless times before. The temptation was overwhelming. As the phone loaded, she scrolled through his texts. At first, it was mundane, work conversations, brief exchanges with friends. But then, she saw them, messages from Emily. Her breath caught in her throat as she read through them. Some were harmless, the kind of small talk that friends might exchange, but others were intimate, filled with hidden meanings and plans. "Can't wait to see you again this weekend," one text read. "I'll make sure the coast is clear for us," another one hinted. It was clear now. These weren't just casual exchanges. They were secret rendezvous, carefully planned, with no room for Sarah. The text spoke of secret dates, stolen weekends, and inside jokes Sarah didn't even know existed. Each message burned through her like a hot brand, her stomach twisting in knots as she took in the full extent of the betrayal. But she wasn't done yet. There was more she needed to understand, more to confirm her suspicions. Sarah, almost on autopilot, opened Jake's social media accounts. As she scrolled through his posts, she stumbled upon a set of pictures she hadn't noticed before. They were from a trip they had taken a few months ago, Jake and Emily, together in a cozy cabin by the lake. In the photo, Jake had his arm around Emily, both of them grinning with an intimacy that felt all too familiar. Sarah froze. She remembered seeing this picture on his account, but at the time, she had brushed it off as nothing more than a friendly outing. How could she have missed it? The photo lingered in her mind, haunting her. The closeness between them was undeniable. Jake had looked so natural, so comfortable in the embrace of someone else. It was a moment Sarah had been blind to, and now, with the weight of the letter and the text messages pressing down on her, the reality of what had been happening began to sink in. She had never suspected a thing, never thought twice about the smile on Jake's face in that photo. As she pieced it all together, the timeline started to form in her mind. His increasing distance, the long nights at work, the trips away that always seemed to come with an air of secrecy. It all made sense now. He had been lying to her for months, building a life with someone else while Sarah remained in the dark. She hadn't been paranoid, not at all. Everything she had felt, the unease, the discomfort, had been justified. The affair was real. Jake wasn't just distant because of work, he was distant because he was living another life. The dread that filled Sarah's chest was suffocating, but there was also a strange sense of relief. It was almost as though the weight of her own doubt had been lifted, replaced with the harsh clarity of truth. She wasn't imagining things. Jake had been cheating on her for months, and now she had the evidence to prove it. The day felt like it stretched on forever. Sarah couldn't shake the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. She had the truth now, the undeniable proof that Jake had been lying to her. But despite the clarity, she wasn't sure how to handle it. How do you confront the person you loved, the person you trusted, with the truth of their betrayal? She paced the apartment, her mind racing with thoughts of what she would say, how she would react. One thing was certain. She couldn't just let this fester inside her anymore. She needed to face him, confront the lies, and find some closure, no matter how painful it would be. That evening, Jake came home at his usual time. His footsteps echoed through the apartment as he unlocked the door, and for a moment, everything felt unnervingly quiet. When he stepped inside, he froze for a second. Sarah was sitting in the living room waiting for him. The usual warmth of their home felt absent, replaced by a tension that hung thick in the air. Jake's eyes narrowed in confusion, his smile faltering as he saw Sarah sitting there, her face unreadable. "Hey," Jake greeted cautiously, his voice a little more nervous than usual. "What's going on?" Sarah didn't respond right away. She simply watched him, her heart hammering in her chest. There were so many things she wanted to say, so many questions she needed answers to. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but now that it was here, her mind felt like it was a blur. She took a deep breath and, in a voice that surprised her with its calmness, finally spoke. "Jake, I need to talk to you about something." Her voice was steady, but beneath the surface, there was an undeniable weight. "I've noticed some changes lately. Your behavior, it's been different. I've been trying to ignore it, but I can't anymore." Jake shifted his weight nervously. "What do you mean?" He walked further into the room, his posture stiffening slightly. "I've been busy with work, Sarah. You know that. It's been a stressful few months." Sarah nodded slowly, but she wasn't buying it anymore. "I understand that, but it's not just work. It's everything. The late nights, the phone calls, the times you've been going out without me. It's like you've been keeping things from me." Jake opened his mouth to say something, but Sarah raised a hand to stop him. She wasn't finished. She needed him to hear her out. Her heart pounded, but she forced herself to remain composed. "I found something today, Jake," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I found a letter addressed to you, from someone named Emily." At the mention of the name, Jake's face fell, his eyes widening with the smallest trace of panic. The color drained from his face, and for a moment he seemed completely stunned, unable to form a coherent response. Sarah didn't need to say any more. She could see it in his eyes. He knew exactly what she was talking about. You found it?" Jake stammered, his voice shaky. I didn't mean for you to find that." Sarah held up the letter, now resting in her hand, a cold object of confirmation. "I didn't just find it, Jake. I read it. I know everything now. I know about Emily, about the affair, about the lies you've been telling me for months." There was a long pause before Jake took a deep breath, his gaze dropping to the floor. When he looked back at her, His eyes were filled with a mix of guilt and helplessness. Sarah, I never wanted you to find out like this. I didn't want to hurt you. I was confused. I didn't know how to handle it. It was just a fling. It didn't mean anything. The words stung, each one more painful than the last. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away, refusing to let him see her break. Just a fling? She repeated quietly, her voice trembling slightly. You've been with her for months, Jake. You've been sneaking around behind my back, lying to me about everything. It's not just a fling. You broke my trust. You broke me. Jake opened his mouth as if to explain, but Sarah cut him off. No, Jake. You don't get to explain this away. It's not just the affair. It's the lies, the secrecy, the way you made me feel like I was crazy for doubting you. You made me believe in something that wasn't real, and I can't forgive you for that. Jake's face twisted in guilt, and he took a step closer to her, his voice softening. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. Please, I'll do anything to make it right. We can fix this. We can. But Sarah had heard enough. She stood up slowly, her heart pounding in her chest, but her resolve growing stronger with each passing second. No, Jake, it's too late for that. It's over. Jake's face crumbled in disbelief. What? Sarah, please, don't do this. We can work through it. Sarah shook her head, her voice steady but firm. I can't. I can't be with someone who doesn't respect me enough to tell me the truth. I can't be with someone who betrays me like this. You've made your choice, and so have I. It's over. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Jake stood there, his shoulders slumped, as if the weight of the situation was finally hitting him. Sarah felt no satisfaction in his pain, only an overwhelming sense of finality. This was the end. She had given him her trust, her love, and he had shattered it. There was nothing left to say. She turned away from him, her chest heavy with the loss of everything she thought she had. The love, the relationship, the future, gone in an instant. But she knew, deep down, that she was doing the right thing, the hardest thing, and maybe, just maybe, it would be the first step toward healing. The days that followed the breakup felt like a blur. Sarah woke up each morning with a heaviness in her chest, a weight that didn't seem to lift no matter how much time passed. Her heart ached for what she had lost, the future she had imagined with Jake, the life they were supposed to share. There were moments when she would catch herself reaching for her phone to text him, or glancing at her reflection in the mirror, still trying to make sense of the betrayal. But each time, reality would hit her all over again, and she would remember why it ended, why she had made the choice to walk away. She wasn't just grieving the loss of a relationship, she was mourning the trust that had been broken, the illusion of the love she had believed in. Despite the pain, there was something else stirring inside her, an unexpected strength. She wasn't sure where it came from at first, but over the course of the next few weeks, Sarah realized that she wasn't just a victim of Jake's betrayal. She was someone who had survived it, someone who had made the hard choice to walk away from a relationship that no longer served her. Slowly, as the days passed, the anger faded, and the bitterness gave way to something more empowering, a sense of reclaiming her own life. She wasn't defined by what Jake had done to her. She was defined by how she chose to move forward, how she chose to heal. Her friends and family were her lifeline during this time. They rallied around her, offering words of comfort, support, and encouragement. They reminded her constantly that Jake's actions were a reflection of his character, not hers. They told her she was worthy of love, of respect, and that she deserved someone who would never make her question her worth. Those words stuck with Sarah, and in the quiet moments when she doubted herself, they helped her find her footing again. It wasn't long before Sarah decided to seek professional help to work through the emotional turmoil. She started seeing a therapist who helped her navigate the storm of emotions inside her. At first, the sessions were difficult. There were times when Sarah would cry uncontrollably or get angry at the injustice of it all. But through therapy, she slowly began to understand herself in a way she hadn't before. She learned about the importance of self-love and self-care. She discovered how to rebuild her self-esteem, how to forgive herself for trusting someone who didn't deserve it, and how to set boundaries to protect her heart in the future. Each therapy session felt like peeling back layers of pain, slowly making her whole again. As the weeks turned into months, Sarah's life began to shift. She found herself rediscovering old hobbies she had abandoned: painting, reading, cooking. She immersed herself in her work, focusing on her career and personal growth. She started saying yes to plans with friends, laughing and enjoying life in a way she hadn't for a long time. There were even moments when she felt truly happy again, like the dark cloud that had loomed over her for so long was finally beginning to lift. Dating wasn't something Sarah rushed into. She knew she needed time to heal, time to fully understand what she wanted from a partner and what she deserved. She wasn't looking for a rebound or an easy distraction. When she felt ready, she began putting herself out there, but only when she was truly comfortable with the idea. For the first time in a long while, Sarah was living for herself, not for anyone else. A year passed, and Sarah found herself reflecting on everything that had happened. Looking back, she realized just how much she had grown. The pain was still there, but it no longer held power over her. She had learned invaluable lessons about trust, resilience, and the importance of putting herself first. She was no longer weighed down by the ghosts of the past, no longer tethered to the lies Jake had told her. Instead, she was free to move forward, free to trust herself, and free to embrace the future with open arms. Sarah smiled softly as she thought about the journey she had taken. It hadn't been easy, and there were days when it felt impossible, but she had made it through. She was stronger, wiser, and more confident than she had ever been before. The past was no longer a burden. It was a part of her story, but it didn't define her anymore. She was her own person, and she had built herself back up, piece by piece, until she was whole again. And that, she knew, was something no one could ever take away from her. Sarah sat by her window, the soft evening light casting a golden hue across her face. A gentle breeze drifted in, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt calm, grounded. She thought back to everything she had been through: the shock of the discovery, the heartbreak, the nights filled with tears, and the moments where she felt completely shattered. It had been one of the most painful chapters of her life, but also the most transformative. She realized now that it wasn't just about Jake. It was about her learning to trust her instincts, reclaim her power, and rediscover her voice. She had faced a truth that broke her, but instead of staying broken, she rebuilt herself from the ground up. The experience forced her to see herself in a new light, not as someone who had been betrayed, but as someone who had survived, who had risen, who had grown. Looking directly into the camera, her voice steady but heartfelt, Sarah shared her message. If you're going through something like this, I want you to know, you are not alone. It hurts, yes. It feels like the world is falling apart. But sometimes, it's in those broken places that we find our strength. Trust yourself, even when it hurts. You deserve love that is real, honest, and true. And most importantly, you deserve to be at peace. Don't ever forget that. As she turned away from the window, there was a quiet smile on her face. A smile of closure, of healing, and of hope for what's still to come.